Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's chat with Akton Tamko about Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 5, The Door. So we're here to talk about The Door and all sort of book spoilers or production league spoilers or fair game. So if you're a bit squeamish about that sort of thing, although I'm sure there won't be much of them, but if you're really squeamish about that sort of thing, you might want to tune out. Just thought I'd give that spoiler warning. So here to talk about The Door with me is Akton Tamko.
Hello, how's it going, everyone? It's Acting Tamko to talk about this pretty intense ending there. Pretty powerful ending there. I've been looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, so the first thing we usually first start off by saying our overall feelings about the episode, and I actually want to ask you about that because when I make my reviews, and I think you do the same thing. We make our reviews before we see any other reactions, watch any other videos or hear of any fan reactions. So just making it just on what I think. So I gave the episode an 8. I said it was good, but it had some slight issues with it. But then I see like the majority of people, and particularly I would say book purists actually, seem to love this episode. I see so many people like saying it's the best episode ever, best episode of the season. So I think, and I guess I got a few people saying that I wasn't being as positive on this episode as they think I should have been, but that was just my initial thoughts. So what do you think about that? Do you think that this episode is one of the best of the series?
I don't know about the series. It's hard to, that's so hard to say, but best of the season, I just can't. I really hate ranking what's the best of the season until the whole season is done, honestly. But I even have one guy comment on my videos who was ranking all of the seasons, and he put season 6 in there. And like, how can you even rank season 6? It's halfway done.
Yeah.
Though his ranking, if you take season 6 out, I think he had season 6 third, but if you took it out of it, it was exactly what my ranking would have been. But in any case, I don't know about premature rankings, but I can't think of any other scene this season that was that powerful. And I love the Daenerys scene. I was a huge fan of that one, but it's hard for me to say what the best of the season is.
Well, now, without like leaving rankings aside, just judging the episode on its own right, do you think maybe you liked it better than I did? Do you think maybe an 8 is too low?
I definitely liked it better than you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I were to give those 1 through 10 rankings the way you do, I think I would be a lot more stingier with the 10s. So I don't know that I would give it a 10. I don't think I would give much a 10. So I would definitely give it a 9 at least. Maybe, I don't know if a 10, but definitely a 9. And as far as the best of the season, I think that it's a contender right now for me. So yeah, I liked it better than you. And we'll get into it when we talk more on the details. But the complaints that you had, the things you were pissed off about, don't bother me. I didn't have.
Okay. Well,
I do kind of agree with you on the. Didn't have the problems that you had, and I actually loved the episode.
Oh, sorry, I lost your audio there when you said what you agreed with me on. So if you could just repeat that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You turned into the little Enchantment of Eternity symbol on my screen.
All right.
Yeah. So I said that the King's Mood I kind of agree with you on.
Okay.
That was a little disappointing. I mean, I didn't dislike it, but we'll get into it. But there were some things that But I'm still excited about what's going on with Iron Islands and their intersection with Daenerys. So, but I did kind of agree with you on that one. A lot of the other things you said that you really hated or pissed you off and stuff like that, I didn't agree with you on. So I would definitely give it at least a 9, maybe a 10, and probably the best of the season, but that's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I gave episode 4, last week's episode, and episode 2 higher ratings to this episode, and I stick by it. I stick by it That's how I feel about it. But I can sort of understand why some people might have really liked this episode, because there were parts of this episode I love. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Let's, of course, we go by location, and let's just get let's not beat around the bush. Let's just jump right into the brand stuff, which was, of course, the main thing of the episode. And the thing I want to talk about, I want to start on, is book spoilers. What I mean by that is not like spoilers from the books that will spoil the show. I mean spoilers from the show that's going to spoil the books, because the books have moved beyond the show has moved beyond the books, and we've got quite a few huge nuggets of information in this episode. But the first thing I want to talk about is how the Hodor reveal, and specifically about how Dan and Dave said in the Inside episode that this came directly from George. And the thing that sort of struck me about this is because they did that last year with the Shireen's burning thing, and there was an outcry and outrage. There was Linda from Westeros.org was like going to go on a murderous rampage. I thought she was going to get a sniper rifle and like murder Dan and Dave. I just watched her video, and she was completely fine with them revealing that the Hodor thing came from George. So to me, that seems like a stark contrast, and I'm sort of wondering why maybe book purists are more willing to give Dan and Dave a pass for revealing this is a book spoiler than they were of the Shireen burning.
Well,
So
I have a guess. Yeah, I have a guess on that, and that is because we have moved beyond the books for sure. Whereas season 5, they were still. We thought we were still in Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons territory there. And now we've definitely moved beyond where the books are, except for a couple things, Arya and the Iron Islands and stuff like that. But for the most part, we've moved beyond the books. So it is expected now that if you are still watching the show, you are going to see book spoilers. So I think that maybe people who I know that there are people who are really, really big book fans who are a little bit sad that their book is being spoiled for them, and yet they're still watching, and they're still loving it, and they're still enjoying it. But I think maybe mentally they're more prepared for it, and maybe in season 5 it just came out of left field, like they weren't expecting to. They were expecting Dance with Dragons and Feast for Crows stuff. So that is my best guess. It's just all about your mental state and what you're prepared for mentally.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I think I could buy that. But the other thought I was saying, I had a more cynical thought about maybe why they were willing to give this a pass, is because generally they hated the Shireen burning thing. They thought that was a horrible story turn, so they wanted to blame Dan and Dave. Oh, this is all their fault because they suck as writers. And when they revealed it was George, they transferred that anger to, you're putting the blame on George. Whereas the Hodor thing, they quite loved and thought it was great. So that when they mentioned it came from George, they're like, oh, of course it came from George because he's awesome. Of course something awesome like this.
Right. Yeah, that could be true too. There could be some truth in that.
All right, cool. So let's talk about some of the other book spoilers, like the big revelation that the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers. This sort of changes like the world of Ice and Fire in the history books, because we know that George specifically didn't tell them about it and left some things out because he wanted to withhold it. And it seems like this is one of those nuggets of information, unless you think that this won't be different. This will be different than the books, and the books will be something different. But I kind of think that this sounds like something that came directly from George.
Yeah, I saw one video where a guy who is really more familiar with the books than I am, so I can't confirm or deny what he said, but he said that the timing doesn't make sense for the books because the White Walkers came during a time when the children and the first men were already in peace. Like the war was already over by the time the White Walkers came along. And I'm not sure if that's accurate. I mean, I know that the war was over once they built the wall and they fought off the White Walkers, but I'm not sure if they first appeared. But this person who said this is way more familiar with the books than I am. So maybe he's right. So if that's the case, then the very least, then it'll be a little modified, a little different from the books. However, I definitely think that this comes from the books. I don't think Dan and Dave decided that the Children of the Forest invented the White Walkers. It could be like modified a bit, possibly, but I think that definitely came from George.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you, because this does seem like something that's a bit more relevant that would be more relevant to the books, because I actually think a lot of show-only watchers might be a bit lost on this. That's why in my video I explained like the history of when this is actually taking place. And so I'll just jump into the next thing I want to jump into, is that because in this scene, they had the actor who plays the Night King is being the guy who's being changed, and I believe they had the same actor playing a leaf, playing the person. So I had a major problem with this, is what they're trying to say, if that was the creation of the Night King. Because if this takes place during the war with the First Men, which they said it was, then it's between, and I checked my World of Ice and Fire book, between 8,000 and 12,000 years ago. So that would mean the Night King is 10,000 years old, which I find a bit ludicrous. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't. I mean, I don't find that ludicrous. It just means that they're changing who the Night King is. He's not the Night's King from the legends, the former Lord Commander of the Night's Watch from the books. It's just they're changing who he is.
Well, I mean, what I've heard George said before, he went out and made a statement saying that the Night King you see on the show is not the Night's King from the Watch. That is the title that's handed down, and that no survivors from that long ago. And he's talking about less of a time span, like maybe a couple thousand years ago. So it seems so. He was saying that the show is, there's no like people who are that old who are still around. But now if the show's trying to say this, they're actually going beyond and saying there's people who are much older. I mean, you think 10,000 years, that's like in our real life, like Jesus' birth and all that was 2,000 years ago, and 10,000 years ago for us is like 8,000 BC. And it's just too ridiculous. It reminds me of like Star Trek, because Star Trek often throws these ridiculous time frames out there, like, oh, this happened 10,000 years ago, and it's just, and it doesn't seem to jive in there. I don't think they're really taking into account. So I had that same sort of feeling with this.
What I remember is, as a kid, the original Transformer cartoons, where they were gone for like 1 billion years, and that dude Shockwave, the guy who turned into Gun, was just hanging out on the Transformers planet for 1 billion years. I was like, that was ridiculous. But yeah, that was like the most ridiculous time frame. But as far as, 8,000, 10,000 years, yeah, I mean, but other movies and shows have done it, and I've accepted it. So, I mean, it is a bit ludicrous, but I've grown accustomed to shows and TV and movies doing that. So whatever. I don't have a big issue with it if that's what they're doing. And they're also saying Leaf is like 8,000 years old. So, yeah, whatever.
So John Alexander in the chat says, don't they hibernate? And yeah, I suppose that they do, but still, I don't know. It still bothers me. I'm going to be in denial and just think that they just use the same actors for convenience and they're actually meant to be different people. I'm still going to live in that little denial until it's outright stated otherwise.
In the inside of the episode, didn't Dan and Dave say something that kind of implied that it was the Night's King? I can't remember exactly, but I came away from that thinking that it was the Night's King.
Oh, really? Oh, well. Okay. I don't know. It's more of a minor complaint. Anyway, so let's move on to another topic. Let's talk about the big Hodor reveal. Because that's something I actually really liked. That was one of my major pluses about this episode. It was a very sad death, and a lot of people were saying that it is very sad. But like I said, it reminds me of my favorite movie of all time, 12 Monkeys, and the way that there's the tragic death that he always saw coming from birth. What are your thoughts on that?
That was a really good analogy. I didn't think of that until you mentioned it, but leave it to you to come up with the 12 Monkeys analogy. But yeah, and that I was trying to think of, what does this remind me of? And that's totally what it is. Yeah, I did like that. Of quite a lot. Did you get to watch, our friends, the Geek Siders, who we had on a couple weeks ago? They did a reaction of them watching it.
Oh no, I didn't watch the reaction. I watched the review. I haven't watched the reaction.
Yeah, their review was right after the reaction because they were still like teary. You could see them like getting all teary eyed. I mean, they were just, just torn up. I didn't have quite as. I mean, I had a very just a mixed rate of emotions. I wasn't just totally just like sitting there bawling, but because I was also admiring of like the genius of it and how like, I mean, that is like 12 Monkeys, or it just like reminds me of just a really beautifully done, like powerful kind of, time travel story where, I mean, you have this character who has this issue that nobody knows where it came from. He says Hodor all the time, and no one knows how that started. Why does he say Hodor all the time? What does that even mean? And then you find out he was experiencing his own death when he was a young kid, and it traumatized him, and that is extremely powerful. And I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was. And it brought out all these different emotions because you're seeing this character die. You're also finding out like how he got the way he is, and then seeing the look on Bran's face was devastating. But it was just, I was in awe of it. I was blown away. So yeah, I was just totally blown away by it.
Well, continue along with the 12 Monkeys analogy. I think. And we've talked about this before, and I think that's reinserted in this episode. I think it made it a certainty that they're using the same kind of time travel logic that was used in 12 Monkeys, where you cannot change the future from the past. You can affect things, and maybe things that always meant to happen had happened. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think we'll see any more of sort of Bran affecting things from the past?
I think that we will. And first I have to say that is my favorite kind of time travel story. The going back and changing the past things, I mean, it always creates too much time paradox. So I like if you go by what Lost called it, and Lost, whatever happened, happened. I like that is my favorite type of time travel logic because it all makes sense and wraps. There's no time paradoxes in whatever happened because it all fits together perfectly. Like whatever happened always happened. I guess you could say there's ways to say that there are time paradoxes, but it just ties together more loosely. And I hate bad time travel logic. And it bugs me. Like the movie Looper, that movie just bugged me because it has the time travel logic in that. And I hate bad time travel logic, and I love time travel logic that makes a lot of sense and ties together beautifully and is beautifully done. So it is my favorite type of time travel.
You probably already know this, but steer clear of Terminator Genesis because they use very horrible time travel logic.
Yeah, I had no inclination of ever seeing that movie.
Okay, so I want to just address something that Jean-Philippe Poirier says in the chat, which is something I've been hearing a lot, is twist, Bran is actually Bran the Builder. And I've been hearing a lot of things like the Bran is going to actually be all the famous brands from history, and that Bran is going to like make the Mad King mad and stuff like that. Like, I'm not so sure I'm on board with all of that. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think that Bran is going to affect the past in very profound ways, like he did with Hodor, but it's going to be much smaller ways. I don't think that he's going to be like Bran the Builder, or he made the Mad King mad, or he caused Aegon to conquer the Seven Kingdoms, or anything like huge like that. I don't think it's anything huge I think that would, and if they did do that, I would hate it because that's too much. Like, especially
maybe if they did one of those things and had a slight effect on it, it would be okay. But if they had him actually be Bran the Builder or some, and if he did all of those things, that would just be overboard. If
that would be like Forrest Gump, where Forrest Gump just invented everything. Like every little saying, every little pop culture phenomenon was invented by Forrest Gump. That would just be, yeah. But that would just be too much. No, I think that we're going to find out he has affected the past in very profound ways, just like he did with Hodor, but it's not going to be these epic things like he built the wall or anything like crazy epic like that. I don't think it's going to be these huge monumental things. They're going to be smaller things that are very profound. That's what I think.
Cool. And all right, so let's talk about next about what moving on from like the White Walkers, and we learned that this is their the way they were invented. And someone, I think it was John Alexander, mentioned the analogy I made in my video about the Doomsday Machine from Star Trek, is that they're like a weapon of mass destruction that got out of control, and that their main goal is to destroy humanity because that's what they were created for, and they're sort of a weapon out of control. And that sort of goes against the theories that we both had about the White Walkers being more than they appear. But I'm sort of on board with that now. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not ready to totally trash my theory that the White Walkers are more than they appear, because I think that they still could be. I think there's still more that we need to learn about them. But yeah, it does look like they were intended as weapons, and something went awry. But that doesn't necessarily still mean, I think, that they're totally pure evil. I mean, there still could be some more layers to them that we don't know about. That, yeah, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see approach on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still like I think that they're a weapon meant to destroy humanity, but I do think there's going to be more complexity to them than that, and they're not just going to be straight out evil. And what I think of Bran in this episode in particular, let's talk about Bran, about how, because people have been, there's theories before, which I hope this episode destroyed, because I was never on board with these theories, that the three-eyed raven and the children of the forest were evil and the White Walkers were good, which I thought was the most ridiculous theory I've ever heard, and a lot of people are on board with that. But what I think this episode is presenting is not necessarily that they're evil. Bran isn't evil, but he's not like this straight hero. He's not like completely this good guy, that he's complex like all of George R. R. Martin's characters. And I think because of the way they have Bran being the one using magic to save the world, there's a risk of him being presented as this big hero good guy. So they're showing this dark side of him, how he basically like destroyed Hodor's life and used him in order to save himself. And there's that evil side of him, but I don't think it means that he's straight out evil. I think it just means that he's a complex character who's not straight up good.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, definitely. Yeah, I think I wouldn't even call it evil. I mean, he didn't mean to do those things. I would just call him, he's just human, but he has these like powers that, I think he just does things that anybody would, any normal person might do, but except that he has these powers that he doesn't know what, he's too young, doesn't know how to control them. So and he's naturally, human being, and he's a little self-centered. He's young, but just by being a normal like teenager, with all these powers, he has these effects that normal teenagers couldn't have on other people. So I wouldn't call it evil. I just think that he just is in no way able to control his powers, or is ready to have these powers at his age. Even though he's like 7 feet tall now, he's no way ready to have these kinds of powers. He's too young and immature. So I think it's more immaturity than it is evil, honestly. But it's just that it has this really, really horrible effect on somebody because of the powers that he has. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just don't think he's that different from a normal teenager, except that he has these powers.
Yeah, and I think they sort of drove that home in this episode when Bran says, when the three-eyed raven was like, oh, you have to become me now, and he's like, am I ready? He's like, no, flat out. You're not ready, but you have to anyway. So he's going to make mistakes. But here's the other thing, and I think you kind of asked this question in your review, is of why they were still hanging out in the Winterfell while they're about to die and the White Walkers are trying, why are they still in this vision? And some commenters came up with this theory, which I think makes sense to me, is that the Blood Raven knew what the cycle that needed to happen with Hodor, and that's why they were there, and that's why he was keeping there. That's why he was encouraging Bran to warg into Hodor, because he knew what would happen to Hodor, and he knew that's what needed to happen, because if Hodor never had this effect, then he would have never went on this mission with Bran, and arguably none of the stuff that happened with Bran would have actually happened, and it was sort of a calls, chicken and egg type situation.
Yeah, and that is, I didn't quite put it like that in my video, but that is kind of what I said, that this needed to happen for, that's a little more in-depth than what I came up with. So that's actually really good. But I said in some way, I think this needed to happen in order for Bran to become the Blood Raven. But then, which actually, I don't know about this term, the Blood Raven, but that's a different topic. But
yeah. Three-eyed raven, whatever. Yeah.
But and then in the the inside the episode, they were like, oh, the three-eyed raven needed to upload all of his knowledge into Bran, and then, like, that's where I'm like, well, how is that happening? So that made me think that the Hodor thing was somehow tied into that, like that's how he's becoming the three-eyed raven. So it's more than just this needed to happen to Hodor so that Bran could get there. It seemed like that this needed to happen for Bran's future so that he could become the three-eyed raven, and that's the dots that I'm not connecting. But that's what they said. They went back there so that three-eyed raven could upload all of his knowledge to Bran. So that's where I'm not seeing yet, like, how that happened. But apparently I would assume that the Hodor thing had something to do with that, because why else would they go there?
Yeah, I don't know. I personally think it's separate, because when he talks about, as soon as he says you have to become me, Bran poof, has his eyes go white. So I think that was the download, and maybe the Winterfell thing was something different, but I don't know. You could be right. Maybe they are connected.
I don't know. I don't think so. I assume that that's what it was, because I have to watch the inside the episode again, but the way they said it, I got the impression they were referring directly to the Winterfell scene, that was it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's,
I didn't get that impression, but that could just be me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that there was some off-screen downloading and then they went to Winterfell. I think that it seems like it would be connected, but who knows? I don't know.
Okay, so let's talk about the thing which you alluded to earlier that we disagree upon, and which I assume this is what you're talking about, is that I was really upset about Summer's death. I thought it was I called it the worst death in my review, and someone called me out on that and said, well, what about blanking on his name from Doran, Prince Doran. What about him? He was the worst death. I'm like, yeah, but they kind of fucked up all Dorne already, so I kind of expected them to totally fuck that up as well. But with Summer, he was awesome up until, like, again, this is the same. This is hankering back to why I had issues with Osha's death, because we don't see her for 3 years and then they kill her off. We don't see Summer for 2 years and then he appears, and in the exact same moment he appears again. Oh, it's Summer. We finally see him again. Now he's dead. It's just, and plus it seems like they're going on a huge, like, must kill all of the direwolves things, and that's pissing me off. So I think Ghost and Nymeria are gonna die. Like, someone in my comments mentioned that Walder Frey is you're probably gonna see Walder Frey feasting on Nymeria, and that wouldn't surprise me, because it seems like Dan and Dave are have a thing against direwolves and just wiping them all out, and it's really pissing me off. And to be perfectly honest, that is a major thing of what brought this episode down for me.
No, actually, as far as disagreeing with you, I disagree with you more on the other deaths that you mentioned that pissed you off. The Ghost one, I don't disagree with you per se. I'm just not as upset by you. It's just kind of, I don't know. I just kind of expected it, and it's, I'm not pissed off about it. I'm disappointed, I guess. It was a bummer. And I was like, oh, yay, go, Summer, or not go, Summer, yay, Summer, all right. And then, like, 2 seconds later, that was kind of, I was like, come on, really? But I guess it just wasn't as angered by it as you were. That's, I don't disagree on that. I just don't feel as strongly about it.
Okay.
It's the other two deaths you mentioned that I really disagree with you about.
Well, the other two deaths actually didn't bother me as much as the summer one. The summer one is what really, really bothered me. And yeah, it just seems like they're just killing off Star. Now, I want to mention something someone just mentioned in the chat, and I've heard this mentioned. I got like maybe 4 or 5 comments on my video all saying this, that the death of Summer was a symbolic death, meaning it's the death of summer and winter is coming, which... yeah, I don't know. I suppose that could be what they were doing, but I'm not on board with that. I think that's a bit cheesy if that's what they're doing. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. Yeah, I've heard people say that too, and I don't know. I just don't think much of that. Whatever. Maybe not. I don't know. I just don't really even care about that, I guess.
Okay, so well, let's go ahead and talk about the other Destin that you said you disagree with me more on, which is the Three-Eyed Raven and the Children of the Forest. See, I don't know. My fanboyism is coming out of here because I was like fanboying hard when I first saw the Children of the Forest. I was like, yay, we get to know them. So we don't see them all season 5. We see them in about 3 episodes, and then they're all dead. We don't know for certain that this is the rest of the Children of the Forest. Maybe there's some other Children of the Forest out there. I certainly hope so, but I doubt it. And that kind of pisses me off because I thought it was a huge deal because everyone thought they were extinct, but now they are apparently, or most likely, and that kind of ticked me off. And the Three-Eyed Raven is like, Bran spent 5 seasons on this long... some would call a boring storyline. All right, 4 sorry. Yeah, 4 seasons. Okay. Trying to get to him, and he finally gets to him, and we see him for like 4 episodes, and then he dies. That bothered me. That just bothers me.
Yeah, but I just think of it more of a storytelling perspective that he served his purpose. I mean, he was with Bran during the entire time that season 5 was going on, which I guess is several months. I don't know how long season 5 was in real time, a few months. And he was with him. He was teaching him. This is the classic story, the Luke Skywalker and Yoda thing. They never, ever get to learn everything that they need to learn to be ready for what they have to do, ever, in any story like that. They're always cut off prematurely and they're not ready yet. And that's part of the conflict. That's part of the story. And so the Three-Eyed Raven kind of served his purpose, and now in order for Bran's storyline to move forward, he needs to be on his own now. They said 10 to 15 episodes after season 6. That's why the story is moving a lot quicker. That is for sure, because they want to wrap this up in a couple more seasons. So they gotta get a move on. And so it's time for Bran to be on his own. His story has gotten to that point, just like Daenerys needed to do something for herself, for her story to advance. Bran now needs to be on his own for his story to advance. So I don't know what you would think the Three-Eyed Raven is going to do for 5 more episodes. I think his purpose has played itself out. It's time for Bran to be on its own. It's a fine time for it to happen. I don't think it's rushed. I think it's totally fine. And I don't even know why we need the Three-Eyed Raven. You can't just have the Three-Eyed Raven sitting around showing Bran's visions all season long. We need to move forward. So I'm totally happy with the Three-Eyed Raven being gone and Bran moving forward with the story and being on his own. So I have no problem with it.
I mean, I can see your point of view. I just don't think what we've seen of him justifies the build-up. I think it was a lot of build-up for not enough payoff, personally.
I disagree because the payoff is going to come even after the Three-Eyed Raven is gone, because even that little time that he was with the Three-Eyed Raven, Bran is fundamentally changed now. So Bran's storyline moving forward is the payoff for all that build-up to the Three-Eyed Raven. I don't think we needed to see the Three-Eyed Raven himself that much. It's the effect that he has that's really profound.
Well, as I said, this isn't something I feel that strongly about. I felt much more strongly about the Summer and the Children of the Forest than I did the Blood Raven. To me, it is something that I just slightly disagree with you on. I think you feel more strongly about this than I do. But I don't know. I think he could have lasted towards the end, but it's not something I'm sweating too much. Not as much as the Summer thing. The Summer thing just really fucked me off. So I just want to address... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was about to address something in the chat too, but you go first. It might be
Yeah, I just want to address what Phil the Issues guy says, and hey, what's up? It's good checking him out. If you haven't checked out his channel's awesome. I love his videos. Anyway, yes, um, uh, which design of the Children of the Forest do you like most, the season 4 or the season 6? And I actually prefer the season 4. I think a lot of people complained about season 4, and so they changed it to season 6. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I saw the season 4 first. The season 6 just looks a bit too elf-like to me. It's a bit too fantasy out. I don't know. But I don't really mind either way, but I kind of prefer season 4.
I did it first because the season 6 one was weird and new to me, but now I've gotten used to it. I like it a lot better because I think it really depicts the Children of the Forest better. I think they should be kind of elf-like. So I do, now that I'm used to it, I do like the season 6 better, but I don't dislike the season 4 version.
Oh yeah, cool.
But so now can I address something that I saw?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I lost it again. Let me see. Janelle Walden said, I won't miss Bloodraven. But I'm still pissed he didn't let us see the tower. We're still seeing the tower. I think this is a misconception that some people have that this means the end of Bran's vision. But remember, he said, it's time for you to become me. So this is only the beginning of Bran's visions. This is not the end of it. And there was I don't know if this is 100% legit, but apparently the guy who played young Ned Stark said he was going to be in season or episode 6 a little bit, and then he was going to have a significant role in episode 10, which implies that episode 10 will be the Tower of the Joy. I guess we'll see next week. If he appears in it a little bit, then we'll know that's accurate. But that's what he apparently said. So, and I could buy that. I could see that the Tower of Joy would happen if they'd save that for the end of the season. I still believe we're getting it, but it's not the end of Bran's visions just because the Three-Eyed Raven. In fact, is dead. In fact, it's the beginning of his visions.
Yeah, honestly, I actually would have thought it would be the end of his visions as well, but I saw the same spoiler that you're talking about, and I do take it at face value. I think that we will see it again. Didn't they say that the Ned Stark actor was going to appear in episodes 6 and 10? So if that's true, we might see him next week.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. He said he would appear briefly in episode 6, and then significantly in episode 10. So what I'm saying is we'll know next week if that's accurate or not, because we'll see him or not see him. But yeah, because the Blood Raven said, or the Three-Eyed Raven said, it's time for you to become me now, that he's going to become him. That means he gets all the visions in the world. Because I never thought for a second that we wouldn't see any more visions, because I thought that's what that meant when he says, you're me now. So he's going to see visions all over the place now. He just won't have guidance from the Three-Eyed Raven. He's just going to have to figure shit out on his own.
Or have him holding him back, like, don't go in the tower.
That's true. That's true. But
okay, so go ahead.
But maybe the Three-Eyed Raven was legitimately, helping him from doing too much and hurting himself. So now Bran won't have somebody holding him back. But hopefully he learned a little lesson from his stint with the White Walkers. Maybe he'll be a little more careful. And
that gets to that touches on another little nitpick I had in this episode. I didn't mention in my review, but the fact that the whole thing, the reason why all this shit happened, Hodor had to die and the White Walkers invaded, is because Bran went and touched, went to where the Night King was and he touched him and he marked him. So why didn't the Blood Raven actually warn him? You think he could have just been like, hey, don't let the Night King touch you, otherwise he'll be able to kill us all. I see that as more as the Three-Eyed Raven's fault for not warning, giving a friendly heads up, because apparently he knew all about it.
Well, but he did I don't know if this happened on screen, but I'm assuming just from context that it seems like he didn't want Bran to go off by himself and have visions. And Bran, Bran was sneaking to do it. He threw that thing at the Three-Eyed Raven to see if he was paying attention. So clearly he was sneaking off. So I think Bran was directed not to go off by himself. So that should be warning enough. Don't listen to the Three-Eyed Raven, and that won't happen.
No, well, this happens in a lot of movies and TV shows, and the thing is that specific warnings are always better than vague ones because vague, you can tell exactly why it's a bad idea to go off by yourself.
Well, but what is he going to say? Don't go off by yourself. But if you do, if you totally ignore me, then definitely don't let the Night's King touch you. Then Bran was, then he's okay with me ignoring him. I'll go ahead and ignore him. You have to draw the line and say, don't go off by yourself. And that's all there is to it.
No, I disagree. I think even a friendly notion, like even maybe the Three-Eyed Raven could be with him in the Night's King's around. Just a friendly warning saying, don't let him touch you. If you ever happen to come across the Night King, don't let him touch you because we'll all die if he does. And another sort of question related to that, now I was just thinking about this earlier. If Bran goes to the wall, say he goes to Castle Black, does that mean the White Walkers would be able to bypass the magic of the wall and get through the wall that way? Is that how they get through the wall? Because he's marked, and if he goes at the wall, then they'd be able to get through the wall as well.
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, I kind of hope it's not that way because I think that would make Bran kind of at fault for everything. So I hope they don't go that route, but it seems possible. It seems like they could do that.
I just want to address something in the chat. That sweet Sansa booty. Why did the COF only enchant the entrance of the cave against whites and not the entire cave? It's like installing an alarm system that only works if people come through the front door. I thought the entire cave was enchanted. It's just the fact that Bran was marked that allowed the whites to come in, and they could enter anywhere. So it's not just that the front door was the whole cave, but then once Bran was marked, then that was the end of everything.
Yeah, the reason I couldn't go through the front door is the Children of the Forest put up their little enchanted firewall, which affected the whites. That's what they couldn't get through, but they could go around to the back because the Children of the Forest didn't have an enchanted firewall in the back. So it was two separate things.
Oh, right. If that's what they're talking about, then yeah, but they were in the front. They couldn't do the back. I guess a couple of them could have gone out back and done it. But
yeah. Cool. All right. So I think we've been on Bran for 45 minutes.
I told you we would be. I said we would probably be talking about.
So one more subtopic I want to talk about with Bran is, what do you think will happen? Where will he go from here? It's just him and Mira. So I'm kind of thinking they have to go to someone else's storyline. Because I don't know. I just don't see them spending too much time with just him and Mira by themselves. I suppose maybe a couple episodes, but I'm starting to wonder if he will go to Castle Black and we will see him go with Ed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, he does have a vision, so it's not like it's just going to be Bran and Mira hanging out. I mean, he's going to hang out with Ned Stark and, all kinds of people in the past. So he'd be in plenty of other people's storylines, maybe just not people in the present. Now, as far, but you do have a point. I mean, they something's gonna happen, and somebody asked me this in the comments. One of our most loyal commenters, Mr. Bentley, she asked me, where are they going to go next? And I said, I have no freaking idea where they're going to go next. I don't know. My guess is that Bran might get some guidance from some vision. He might have a vision that kind of, guides him to where he's supposed to go next. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe even though I think this would be totally cheeseball, I don't think it would be beyond the show. The Three-Eyed Raven could totally Obi-Wan in a vision. I kind of hope that doesn't happen because that would be a bit corny, but something like that.
Too much of a ripoff of Star Wars.
Yeah. Except that he wouldn't be a ghost; he would just be in the vision.
Yeah,
but I don't know. They could. That was my best guess. That wherever he goes, he's going to be guided there by a vision. And people are saying, well, what if he'll run into Benjen Stark? doubt that, but that would be cool. I mean, maybe there's a reason why they showed young Benjamin Stark twice. I mean, maybe it's a foreshadowing, but I
mentioned him last year as well.
Apparently, last year.
Apparently, the IMDb for next episode has the actor who plays Benjamin Stark listed, but as I told my commenter who told me this, that means nothing because IMDb is fan operated, so it's often wrong. You often see incorrect information thrown in there. But a lot of the commenters are thinking maybe Cold Hands is going to finally come into play. But as much as I would love that, I doubt it. But I don't know.
Yeah. The fanboy in me wants to see that. Every year I kind of half joking. I always in my predictions predict that Cold Hands is going to show up, but I don't actually really expect it. It's just kind of half joking. I would love that, but I don't have any really hopes for that happening. Either Cold Hands or Benjamin Stark, who is not Cold Hands but just regular Benjamin Stark. I mean, that would be fine. That would be cool. I don't necessarily have hopes for either one of those things, but it's probably just going to go to the boring old wall, which is fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested to see where he's going to go next. And we see in the promo he's going to be in it, so maybe we'll get some inkling of his direction next week. Maybe we'll get some answer as to where he's going next.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them that he doesn't actually get to the wall or any place we know of until the season finale. I could see them doing that, and that he's just hanging out and green singing and warging until then. But I don't know. We'll just have to see. All right. So anything else on brand before we finally move on to a different topic?
No, we've been on brand for at least 45 minutes, which is what I told you, I think, before we started. I was like, we're going to be talking about Hodor and brand for 45 minutes.
Yeah, and that's all good. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, so let's move on and talk about I'm just going to go all out of order here and just go to whatever location I please. Let's go to the Iron Islands. Talk about the Kingsmoot. And, well, what did you think about it? Let's start with there, because I think you had similar complaints that I did. And I've heard a lot of reviews saying they didn't like the Kingsmoot. They thought it was really poor, especially compared to the books. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't hate it. Yeah, and actually there were parts I did kind of actually enjoy Euron's entrance into it, but and his thing about Daenerys, because I was looking forward to that. Let's go get Daenerys, and I thought maybe he was a little bit too cartoonish. And you brought this up in your video that he just admitted that his dad he killed his brother, and everybody's totally fine with it. And I kind of mocked it in my video, how the Iron Island all the Iron Islanders that were there were like Yara, 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 and then Euron comes and makes a better speech, and they're like, Euron. And somebody in the comments said that it reminded them of The Simpsons. They were like, monorail. Exactly. They're just mindless automatons that will just go along with whoever made the most recent speech.
Yeah.
So
that's a very good point. Yeah.
It didn't bother me though, and it was cool. I mean, I didn't hate the Kingsmoot, but I had more of a problem with how he acted. As soon as he was put in the water, he's like, "Now let's go murder my niece." And I was like, really? He didn't have the evil laugh, but he may as well have. I mean, I just couldn't even take that seriously. Let's go murder them. I mean, come on. That was a little over the top for me.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one thing you said in your review that I totally agreed with. I thought you were totally spot on. That whole let's go murder. I was like, seriously? I mean... And the way, all the other is, I think The Simpsons is a very good comparison now that I think about it. The way they all, before they were chanting Yara, and now they're all like, yeah, let's go kill them. I mean, they might as well just had, torches and pitchforks going the whole route. It was a bit too cartoony.
Yeah. But I still like Euron as a character, and I still like the dynamic between Euron and Yara, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens, which we can talk about in a minute. I do want to talk about what I think is going to happen, but I'll let you talk about what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I think the introduction of Euron in episode 2 was better. I think they kind of fumbled it as a kid. Not just like the whole I don't know, I just didn't get a sense of the character. He just seemed to be like a generic bad guy. I don't know. I just didn't quite.
Yeah. But because of the episode 2 introduction, I still have faith in them. I think it'll be fine, but and I'm looking at the chat. I'm going to strongly disagree with Andy Ammo says. If Danny said, "Let's go murder them," you guys would love it.
Huh?
No. No. If Danny was just it was just anointed queen, and she got up and said, "Now let me go murder." I would stop watching the show. I wouldn't love it. No.
Yeah, I would be just as against it as I am this. Yeah.
No, it would be more ridiculous if Danny did it because it would be completely the character. I would actually stop watching the show. My whole channel would be down the tubes. I wouldn't have anything to do reviews on anymore. But that would be the most ridiculous thing ever. So no, you're wrong. I would not love it. Yeah,
and like those were the other contenders. It's like those are competitors. That's like if like we have the Democratic convention and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton wins. It's like, now let's go murder Bernie Sanders.
And he did nothing.
And that's the other thing, is a lot of people are commenting. I think someone in the chat just said it's kinslaying. Westeros and even the Iron Islands are not okay with kinslayings. He admitted to killing his brother, and I was like, let's go murder my nephew and niece, and everyone's like, yeah, that's not how people should react.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. I was about to say something else. I lost my train of thought, but I don't know.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what we think is going to happen next. Like, I think pretty much everyone's come to the conclusion that Yara and Theon are going to bolt to Marine to get there before Euron does, and which we kind of know from the trailers because we see Yara and Volantis, so we kind of know that they're probably heading that way, which changes like my predictions because I thought that they would actually go with Euron. I didn't realize there would be this "let's go murder them" sort of twist. So yeah, and then Euron says, "Oh, build a fleet of 1,000 ships," and I saw a lot of criticism, which I think is rightfully so, that would take years. And that there's no trees on the Iron Island, so where are they going to get all the wood for this?
I took it as hyperbole. I took it as like a kind of just kind of exaggeration. He's not really going to wait for them to build 1,000 ships before he goes to Marine. I just took that as kind of an exaggeration. I think that once he has a good fleet, they'll go. But it's still going to take a while. Like, you can't just build ships overnight. I mean, I guess the Iron Islanders are really experts at it, so maybe they're faster than other people, but still. And Theon and Yara didn't take all the ships, did they? I mean, they got to still have some.
They said they just took their best ships. They didn't say they took all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that was the thing I was going to say that I just remembered, is that I know Euron was kind of busy with his ceremony and becoming king and all that, but he didn't anticipate that Theon and Yara would just take off. He didn't have measures in place to stop them. I mean, he doesn't have people who are loyal to them to him that would prevent that from happening. I mean, he was just like, oh, I'm just going to become king now, and then when it's far too late, I will get up and say, let's go murder them. I mean, I don't know. He didn't anticipate that at all. But
yeah, and there's another joke I saw someone else say that I thought was spot on, quite funny, about how Euron showed up late to the King's Moot. Like, did he oversleep and be like, oh shit, it's a King's Moot now? Oh shit. What would happen if he was 5 minutes late and they were like, Yara's been crowned? And they're like, hey, guys, wait a second. I want to be king, too.
I thought it was a calculated dramatic entrance. I thought he was there earlier, but he was like waiting up on the top of the hill. Like, is it time for my dramatic entrance yet? And then he just came down and was like, I'm Euron Greyjoy, and made his dramatic entrance at the right time. So I think it was a calculated entrance. But anyway, let's go back to talking about what they're going to do, because I did want to talk about that.
Okay, sure. What else to do?
Because going way back, to the beginning of the seasons and a little bit before the season, when the trailers came out, a lot of people were saying that Yara was going to essentially replace Victarion from the books. And I said, well, maybe, but I also think it's possible that Euron will just replace Victarion and Yara and Theon will go with them. But it does look like that Yara is going to be kind of a replacement for Victarion. I don't think that Yara is going to go and try to marry Daenerys, because I don't think that Daenerys would ever believe that was going to fly in Westeros. And I don't think Daenerys swings that way. So I don't think it's an exact fit, but I do think essentially she will be a version of Victarion, that she is going to try to get to Daenerys first. So you could say, I think, that she's a kind of a replacement for Victarion.
Right. And someone in the chat, Jean-Philippe Poirier, says Euron equals Quentin? ? I doubt it. I think what you said a couple weeks ago about how you can't really say that the book is having out and out replacements, or the show's having out and out replacements from the books, that they're just going a totally different way. And I would say that's to a degree with the Victarion Yara comparison. I think, maybe you're right, they're throwing elements of his storyline to her, but I think they're ultimately, like, the show's just doing its own thing.
I think it's going to be a rough equivalent. There's obviously going to be a lot of differences, but the fact that she's even going to Meereen ahead of Euron kind of makes her Victarion-like. But it's going to be totally different, but it's going to be the closest approximation to Victarion, I think.
Well, if I recall from the books, didn't Euron send Victarion there?
Yeah, he did. So, like I said, there's a lot of differences. There's just she's the closest approximation to what Victarion did.
Cool. Okay, so any other thoughts on the Iron Islands before we move on?
No, I'm good. We can move on.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about Bravos. All right, the main thing I wanted to address with Bravos is I got so many people like complaining about Arya's storyline, saying it's really boring this season, and I'm kind of beginning to see their point. Like with the whole stick fighting with the waif. I mean, when they showed that, I was like, "Oh, great, more stick fighting with the waif." And it does progress after that though, with the play and everything like that.
But that was like a minute? I mean, it wasn't that long.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you think her storyline's boring this year, or do you?
No, I don't. I don't have a problem with it. I still don't have. In fact, I think I think that it was a little more boring earlier in the year but it was just set up, so I was okay with it. But now it's picking up. It's moving forward. I think it's progressing nicely. I don't have any problem with it. I don't think it's boring. No, I really like the play. I really like the whole scene with the play, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, go ahead.
That is kind of just set up for what's going to happen next, and I think I still am sticking with my theory that. Oh, can you hear me? My screen is freezing.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I was just freezing there. I'm glad you can still hear me. So anyway, yeah, I was sticking to my theory that I think that they put Arya there as it's a test. I mean, for her to go and have to see these events and her father being portrayed the way he's being portrayed, that's a specific test by the Faceless Men. So I think what's about to happen is going to be really cool, and this is just kind of set up for it. But all the same, I still really enjoyed the whole thing with the play and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I thought maybe the stick fighting was too much, but it's like you said, it's only a minute long. So overall, I am happy with their storyline. I just think that they do need to progress if it doesn't move on, but it looks like it will. So
I think
one thing I want to touch. Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to touch on is the whole history that Jack and Hagar gave with the Faceless Man. Like for me, as someone who's read the World of Lifeless Fire and watched all the history and lore videos, I was like, this is old news. I already knew about this, but I sort of realized that show watchers didn't know about this. And do you think that this was just a way to sort of plug history, or do you think this actually will have significance later on in the story, or was this just a way to get the audience to understand the Faceless Men better?
I thought it was just a way to explain history, but I mean, it wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes into play later, but I didn't. When I saw it, I didn't think that. I just thought it was just a way to explain history.
Because my first thought was this could be Chekhov's history lesson, and it could have something to do with how the Faceless Men hate slavery. So are they going to get involved in Slaver's Bay? But I think that might be too...
It seems like that they should have done that 1,000 years ago. I mean, there's been slavery in Slaver's Bay a long time ago. So I don't think that that's going to happen at all.
I mean, but now there's a movement to end it, so they wouldn't have to start a whole movement. They would just help it along. So it'd be a bit different.
I think they're beyond. No, I mean, what they do is people pay their price and they kill people. Like, that's what they do. I don't think they take up causes anymore.
All right, cool. So yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about the play. So I was going to ask you, because what you thought of my video about my theory about how this was commentary on sort of Shakespeare, and this was meant to be sort of just Lannister propaganda, because someone questioned me further about this in my comment section, and I explained how Shakespeare would often write like propaganda for visiting dignitaries about their own country to sort of butter them up. And it seems like in the novels, at least, there were King's Landing like dignitaries visiting when this play was beginning to put on. I know it's a bit different in the show here, but it seems like that this was just meant to sort of butter up the Lannisters, who are the ruling party, which is why, because like you mentioned how like it seemed like Cersei was writing this, but I would also say that it sort of glorified Joffrey as well. It did present him as a bit naive, but it presented him as like this loyal, sort of kind, oh no, I won't cut off Ned Stark's head, I'll save him.
Right. Which, if Cersei was writing a play, that's how she would portray him. So that's why it seemed, because it was the combination of the way it portrayed Joffrey and Cersei, the way it portrayed Ned Stark, and the way it portrayed Tyrion. There's one person who has all of those points of views, and that's Cersei. That is, she sees Tyrion as the most evil, and Tyrion was like the worst villain in that play. And she sees Tyrion as the worst villain. She sees Ned Stark that way. Or at least she would want to portray him that way. She would want to portray herself and Joffrey that way. So I think, not that I think Cersei actually wrote that play, but she's not smart enough for that. But but I don't think she's a playwright. But it seemed like somebody like was writing a play for her, like from her perspective specifically.
Well, I think it wasn't, maybe not so much as her specifically. They were just trying to butter up the Lannisters. And in that situation, Cersei and Joffrey were the embodiment of the Lannisters. So they were trying to portray them as heroes. And again, getting back to the Shakespeare comparisons, I think this is the Tyrion being the villain as compared to Richard III, and how Richard III was portrayed as this huge, monstrous villain when really he was in order to butter up the Tudors who were in charge. So I think this is a direct comparison to that Tyrion is seen as like the huge villain that killed Tywin and Joffrey, and so they're trying to butter them up by portraying him as the villain.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if when I was saying like who wrote this and did Cersei write it, I don't actually really think that we're going to get an answer to that. Like, I don't think we're going to find out somebody's just trying to butter up the Lannisters or anything like that. I just think that for storytelling purposes, it had to be that way for Arya, because I do think it's a test from the Faceless Men for Arya to have to sit through this. So I think for storytelling purposes, it had to be that way for Arya. So I don't think that the show is actually going to get into, well, is somebody trying to butter up the Lannisters, or who, it's fun to speculate on that, and it was fun to talk about that, but I don't think the show is really going to explore that at all. Like, I don't think we're getting who wrote this and why, and are they trying to butter up the Lannisters. I just think it was there for a storytelling purpose for Arya, because Arya needs to see this.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think the show's going to delve into it further, but I do see the sort of analogies in real life that they're making, like that they often do, and they call back to actual history, and I just think that's more of that. But yeah, getting more into the Arya, like as I said in my review, I totally agree with you that Arya is definitely still Arya. Like, I think that was painfully obvious when they had showed her reaction. Like, as she was laughing, enjoying a good time until like the bumbling idiot of Ned Stark came out, and then she was like pissed. So now I'm starting to change my predictions a bit and thinking that maybe Arya is going to have a sort of falling out with the Faceless Men, because she's obviously still Arya.
Yeah, and then this has been my prediction all along, that this was because we knew about from spoilers that this play was happening, and I predicted a while ago this was going to be a test, and I predicted she was going to fail that test. So I'm still sticking with that. I think that that's where we're headed. I think that she's going to fail the test. I think she's going to have a falling out with the Faceless Men. And another piece of evidence for me, excuse me, is that they gave us that little reminder line from Jack and Nagar: "You were given a second chance. You will not be given a third," which he already said last season. So he said it again this season as a kind of a refresher. That
I don't think he said that last season.
Yes,
they said that. He said that in the trailer. That might be what you're thinking of, but he didn't say that specifically last season.
Oh, I thought that he did. I thought he said you were given a second chance. You won't be given a third.
I'm pretty, because this is her second chance, so he wouldn't have said that before. So they did say that in the trailer, so that may be why it sounded familiar to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you might be right. But I thought when he made her blind, he did say that in the scene that he made her blind, because he didn't kill her, he made her blind. I thought that he said you've been given a second chance and not a third.
No, I don't believe so. I'd have to go back and watch it.
All right, I'm gonna go back and watch it, and I'm gonna let you know. And I'll write a comment on this video what my findings were, because I thought that when he made her blind, he did say that. But
I know that they did use it in the trailer, so we have heard it from that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, in any case, I mean, he did say that. And I think that definitely is like a foreshadowing of, I mean, that line was placed there because she's going to fail, I think.
I don't know. Like, I still think that she might pass. And I think, honestly, that would be more interesting storytelling because she always fails. And if she failed again, that would just be kind of more of the same. It would be more interesting to me if they pass, but they find some other way to sort of create a conflict between them and move her story along. But yeah, I mean, I think she would kind of suck, because the way she was questioning Jack, and it's like, oh, this seems like a nice person. It does seem like being a Faceless Man really isn't for her, because you just have to go kill him, because she's like, oh, who hired you, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, that's none of your damn business. A servant does not ask questions. So it does look like that, yeah, she is going to fall out. But to me, it'd be more interesting if she succeeded, but then fell out after. I don't know. We'll see.
I see somebody in the chat is trying to get me riled up there. Not taking the bait. Actually, this is a whole different topic. Well, yeah, never mind. I'll talk. I was going to talk about something else, but we're still on Arya, so I'll wait for it.
Okay. Well, actually, do we want to move on from Bravos and go to a different topic?
Yeah, let's go on.
So let's go to Daenerys. So the first thing I want to ask about this is, because I know you said in your review that you didn't really like, well, you said that you weren't really that it didn't really affect you emotionally because the rest of the episode was too powerful. To me, I liked it. I enjoyed this thing. It was significantly emotional. It did what it did. My biggest emotion was surprise, because I didn't think that Jorah would just out and reveal his grayscale, because he's been lying about it the whole time. So the fact that he's just like, here you go. And it kind of surprised me.
That surprised me. But what also surprised me, and this is part of why I didn't really care that much about the scene is that Daenerys was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do? Do I take it back or do I not?" I was like, "I thought you already accepted him." I mean, I know she didn't like officially like accept him back into the fold, but she like took his hand and let him fight for her, and like that to me was the acceptance. So this seemed like an extra unnecessary acceptance. So that just threw the whole the whole thing off for me. So it just seemed like a little forced. Like I didn't think I was like, wait, why is she even talking about whether or not she accepts him or not? She already did. What do we need this scene for? So then it just threw off the whole thing for me.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't have that reaction. It did kind. I do get your point. It did kind of feel like old hat, but again, I kind of makes sense because she never officially accepted him back. She was just like took his hand when they're in the middle of a battle.
I thought that was pretty strongly implied. Yeah, that's all I really needed. I mean, I felt like this was kind of extra. And also, I'm just kind of over the Sir Friend Zone thing. Like, he's just been at it for, 6 seasons. And he's finally in season 6, he's like, "I love you." And I'm like, yeah, you should have done that 3 seasons ago. Like, I'm over it. I mean, it's way, and this, I've been over the Sir Friend Zone thing for years now. Like, I just don't even care anymore.
Well, I mean, it was a huge revelation where he said, "I love you," but I think they're sort of moving beyond it, where she's like, "Okay, that's fine that you love me, but I still want you by my side." But I just want to mention what Roseanne Hale says in the chat is, didn't Akton Tamko bring up in the last season that Jorah did already touch Dany's hand when he had grayscale? And I think after that, we addressed that in our discussion video that grayscale, you have to actually touch the grayscale in order to contract it. And I think they actually mentioned this specifically in last episode or the episode before. There was one episode where Jorah, when he revealed it to Daria, and he's like, "Don't worry, it hasn't touched you." So that outright says you need to touch the grayscale in order to acquire the grayscale. Touching hands doesn't transmit it.
Cool. Yes, that is correct.
All right. Okay. So what else are we getting? So anything else you want to say about Daenerys before we move on?
No, I don't really have anything to say about it. And but I do want to say I didn't hate it. I just wasn't. I was like, whatever. But yeah, actually, we can move on.
Actually, the one more question I want to ask is, where do you think Jorah is going to go next? Like, I speculated he might go to Old Town. I keep thinking somebody's going to go to Old Town just because I think Sam's going to be lonely there. And that seems like a logical step for, if you want to find a cure, it seems like going to the Maesters would be the first place to go.
I know. Where did Stannis end up getting? It wasn't really a cure necessarily, but the thing that he got for Shireen. I mean, she still had the deformity, but she wasn't going to die anymore.
Well, it was a cure because it stopped the spread of the disease and it stopped it from. It was inactive. I mentioned in my video that he said last year that he called in from healers all over the world and had all these different people try it, and he wasn't even sure which one of them succeeded. Like, he specifically said that last year. So we know there is a cure, but he doesn't know which one it was or who it was. Because
so I wonder if it's. I don't know if he's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna go that far. I think it's going to be some kind of Eastern mysticism. I think he's gonna find something.
A shy, maybe.
That would be cool, but I don't think he's going there.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be more like Volantis, and it's gonna be a red priestess or something. Or it's not gonna be anything that exciting. I think.
I hope it's an Old Town, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being too fanboyish, but we'll see. Okay, all right. So let's just go ahead and move on to Marine, where the scene where Tyrion. Now, the main question I have with Marine is: do you think that Tyrion's decision to bring in Kinvar is going to backfire? Because it seemed like she seemed pretty dangerous the way she was talking in the scene, and it seemed like maybe that's not the best idea to sort of call her in to help you out.
Oh yeah, I think we've seen from Melisandre over the past several seasons that you're playing with fire, literally, when you you invite in a red priestess. And I think Varys was right to be skeptical, and I do think that she's going to help them, but it's like making a deal with the devil. I think that Tyrion's going to come to regret this, but I do kind of think that they're going to be stuck with her for a little while. I think she's going to actually predicted that she would go back within the Westeros. So I still think that might be the case, and they're going to still be stuck with her. But then it's not going to turn out to be like the best idea, and it's going to look more and more like a bad idea as time goes on. And maybe we won't even get to see how bad it is until next year. But I definitely think that it's probably not going to turn out to be the best thing.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I think that she's going to become Daenerys's Melisandre, and then it's going to be like a duality where Melisandre will be tagging along, Jon Snow will have Kinvard tagging along Daenerys, and they both think that they're Azor Ahai, Prince's Promise, whatever, and eventually they'll collide. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea, a very good theory. I think that could happen.
Because there's been a lot of theory videos out that Dany and Jon are the most likely candidates for Azor Ahai, so I think it's sort of telling that they both have Red Priestesses behind them who believe they are Azor Ahai, or whatever you Prince promised.
The Prince was promised the one. I was actually going to mention this in my video, and I just forgot. I didn't get around to saying it, but when she said she called Daenerys the one that was promised. It means the same thing as the prince that was promised, but they in the books they explain that prince in Old Valyrian is a gender neutral term, so it could mean Daenerys. In the show, they didn't want to have to like explain all that, so they just said the one that was promised. But it is the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, anything else on Marine you wanted to touch on before we move on?
No, I did just want to say that Tyrion's plan is working, and that is the reason, to touch on something somebody said in the chat that I was trying to ignore. That is the reason why there haven't been attacks of the Sons of the Harpy for the last 2 weeks. There were attacks of the Sons of the Harpy since Dario left, just not since Tyrion made the negotiations. That's when the attacks of the Sons of the Harpy stopped. They were still going on when Dario was gone. But it does seem to work, but I still think that this is a mirage, and I still think that this plan is going to backfire, because I just don't think that was I just don't think that you could trust the slavers.
Well, I actually think that Tyrion was being smart about it, because Varys was being like, "Oh, there's peace, everything's all good," but Tyrion's like, "No, we need to do more." He understood that this is just a first step, and that he needed to like.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I still think what I said last week about how the Tyrion is thinking too much in Westerosi terms, and I still think the slavers are still too fundamentally attached to this institution that they had for thousands of years, that they're not going to just be bought off. Like he's just thinking like he's dealing with the land, the Tyrells or something, like some other big house in Westeros, and the slavers are different. So I still don't think that they have any intention of keeping this peace forever. I think this is just a smokescreen.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, the other point that some other people made is that when Daenerys gets back, she's not going to keep this peace. She's going to be like, fuck that. They don't keep slavery for 7 years, especially with the huge army of Dothraki. She's just going to like, screw that. Cool. So I just something in the chat really made me laugh when Jean Felipe Poirier says, Dario isn't the harpy, he's the gift. No, Gendry is the harpy. Dario is the gift. There we go.
No, Gendry is the harpy. Dario is the gift that the Umbers were giving to Ramsay, because the Umbers are really on the Stark side.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another theory we can still do.
Which I haven't heard anybody. I kind of like went on the attack on that theory in my video. I didn't hear anybody protest, but I just read last week this big long thing on Reddit where somebody wrote like a 20-paragraph essay, and it was like numbered on why the Umbers are betraying aren't really betraying the Starks. And it started off, the first line of it, or one of the first lines was, "Well, I refuse to believe that the Dan and Dave is going to have the Umbers changed so drastically from the books. And I was like, that line right there is all you need to know about this theory. He refuses to believe what the truth is. So that's all.
And exactly, that's what I say. That's the heart of your mistake right there. That's the root of your problem. The books and the shows are separate entities. Dan and Dave can change whatever the fuck they like. And
Dorn, you just look at Dorn.
Yeah, exactly.
They can change anything, but it is so clear. And we're getting off topic here, but
since I was going to say, since we're there, let's just move on to the North, which is our final topic. And the first thing and since we're already talking about it, I wanted to bring up another theory I heard, that Littlefinger is the one behind the Umber's change, and he is a part of the Umber's working with Littlefinger, and Littlefinger is the one who wrote the pink letter to Ramsay.
I bet you that the guy, did somebody write that in your comments?
No, I actually think I saw this on a video on another review.
Yeah, no, somebody wrote this in my comments and he was like, "Oh, you should check this out." And I said, I am not going to check that out because the fucking Bolton soldier delivered the letter. End of story. It's like, exactly. No. And he like gave some other like part of the theory. I don't remember what it was. This is cool. This makes a lot of sense. No, you should check it out. And I was like, that doesn't change the fact that the Umber or the Bolton soldier delivered the letter. And I'm just kind of lost all patience for these theories that are trying to explain things that have already been explained in the show. It's already been explained that Ramsay wrote the letter. The letter was delivered by a Bolton soldier. End of story. If you're trying to come up with an explanation for something that's already been explained, I have no interest, because it is a crazy theory that has no value, and I just don't even want to look at it. I'm just kind of done with these crazy tinfoil hat theories that propose to explain something that has already been explained. So I have no interest.
Yeah, well, the thing I heard was when Littlefinger, when he delivered the Falcon to Robin Aaron, he said, "Come and see," apparently. So that
I did notice that too, but I just thought that was a stylistic thing from the writers.
It definitely is. It definitely is a stylistic thing from the writers. And it's just like Pooh Bear with me says in the chat, "Oh, come on, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar." Exactly. People tend to overthink things way too much.
Right.
And do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, how many times in the history of Game of Thrones has there been a big major deception where something that is not what it appears to be? I think at the beginning, the whole John Aaron thing, the Littlefinger was behind it. That would be one. Maybe the Joffrey thing, but I mean, it's not like we thought that somebody else killed Joffrey. Nobody ever believed Tyrion killed Joffrey, so it wasn't really a misdirection. But I struggle to think how many times that has actually happened, where the show has presented something and it's not true and it's totally something else, compared to the number of theories that come out that propose that what the show is telling us is not true. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those theories. And how many times has that actually happened in the show? Once, twice, maybe. I don't know. Not that many times.
Yeah, and I said this in one of my videos about theories where I brought out the thing of Occam's razor, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're misusing Occam's razor," and I'm like, "I'm totally not. I'm not misunderstanding and misusing it, because it reminds me a lot. It's not just Game of Thrones. There's other shows like Lost was the big one people love to theorize, and people did the same mistakes there that they're doing here, is that they overthink things. They overthink and think things are a lot more complicated than they actually are." All right, so let's move on from that and let's talk about Littlefinger still, because there's a thing that we could debate, because we kind of had different takes on this in our reviews, although I do believe that we'll probably actually agree more than our reviews would let on, is that was Sansa turning down Littlefinger a bad idea? Because in my review, I said ultimately I thought it was a bad idea, but I can see her point of view of not trusting Littlefinger, because not trusting Littlefinger is always the good thing to do, because he even said before he killed Ned Stark, "Oh, I told you not to trust me." So we know, like, if not trusting Littlefinger is always the smart thing to do. But in this case, like, I don't know if it was so smart for Sansa to lie to Jon. At least he could have told John, hey, guess what? There's a huge, gigantic fucking Vale army ready to come to our side.
No, I don't think she should have unless she wanted to have it, because John would want that. And so would Davos. So would everybody else there. So if she didn't want the Vale army, then she has to lie about it because everybody else would want it.
Yeah, but that's kind of it makes her a bit deceptive, really. Like she's playing them. And it's like, it seems like they should have been the ones to decide. She could throw in a caveat, but it's controlled by Littlefinger and we can't trust him, and she should have laid out all the information out there so they could, make an informed decision instead of making the decision for them. Well,
Sansa's not that good yet. She's not. She's still learning. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, she should have done that, but she didn't. But it is ultimately a good decision to not trust Littlefinger. But it is, I mean, it depends on how desperate they get. She might have no choice but to trust, or not to trust Littlefinger, but to accept his help.
And it does seem like he's not simply going to let this go. Like we know from spoilers, he's going to appear in the North later in the season. So it seemed like it would behoove her to at least alert them that there's Littlefingers scheming around somewhere.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
Yeah, and I think that she let her emotions, like this was an emotional reaction to she hates Littlefinger to what happened, sort of rule her logical thoughts. I don't know. It's just my side of it.
Yeah. And I heard an interesting comment on this on a video that I watched where they were like, Sansa should have totally played Littlefinger if she was any good at the Game of Thrones. She should have just been like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll take your help. But then, then they get there, and then Brienne, once they have the Vale troops, then Brienne kills them. Just totally, play him and then just turn on him. That would have been the smarter thing to do. But I don't think Sansa is... And I can't blame her after what happened to her from reacting really, really emotionally. So I don't fault her for that. I mean, if that had happened to you, you would probably be really upset and emotional about it too. So I can't blame her. But yes, if we were to say what's the smartest thing to do, what you said earlier would be smarter. Playing Littlefinger and saying, yeah, sure, I'll take your help, and then betraying him because he would never expect it from her. I mean, that would be smarter, but she was reacting off of emotion, and I can't really blame her for that.
Yeah, I just want to answer Pooh Bear With Me's question. Do you think there was anything to Littlefinger's half-brother comment to Sansa? Definitely. He was trying to sow seeds of distrust between them. He's trying to tear them apart. And this is something I said in my videos that I predicted earlier, is that he's totally on board Sansa. He wants Sansa, but he's not necessarily on board with Jon. So it makes sense that he would try to play them against each other. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, come on, please, Sansa, don't fall for that. And it seems like she might be a little bit falling for it.
Yeah. I think he's definitely still playing Sansa, for sure. Then there's a comment in the chat that did the Boltons just let the Knights of the Vale waltz right into Moat Cailin? Wasn't there a battle for Moat Cailin? That's true. The Boltons did take it. So, but I don't know if the Bolton soldiers are physically holding it. I mean, I don't know who's there. Maybe maybe there's a couple dudes there. I don't know how much of a Bolton presence there actually is there. They did kick out the Iron Islands, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we just got to suspend disbelief on that one.
And Roseanne Hill says, but they would not have brought up Littlefinger's interactions with Robin and Jon Royce if the Vale is not going to play a part now. Yeah, I think the Vale is definitely going to play a part, but we don't know what that part's going to be yet, and that's why I think it was kind of idiotic of Sansa to sort of just not even tell anyone about Littlefinger's presence. But let's talk about they're going to go off on the tour now, I guess. I think it looks like they're all going together, like Sansa, Jon, and Davos. They're not going to split off, which would probably save time. But I suppose it would be more convincing if they're all there.
Yeah. Well, we don't know that for sure, do we? I mean, we saw that Davos was at Bear Island and Sansa was at Bear Island in the trailers, but we didn't see that Jon was there. So how do we know that?
We don't know that for sure, but it seemed like the way they were talking that they were going to travel together. Like Sansa was saying, Jon will protect me. So it doesn't seem like she'd say that if Jon was going somewhere else.
Right, that's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
So I mean, we don't know for sure, but I kind of got that impression.
Yeah, but everybody has the Littlefinger teleporter now, so it won't take. The characters have it now, so it won't take them long.
Yeah, that's something else I had to bring up, and I forgot to mention in my review how Littlefinger teleported from the Vale to fucking Castle Black in 2 episodes. Like,
Molestown. One episode, wasn't it last week when he was in the Vale?
Last week. You're right. One episode to Molestown, which is right next to Castle Black. It's like, yeah. Anyone, like, there were still people in the comment section who were trying to excuse it, but there's no excuse. And I've gone to throw out anything. It's like Euron could build his fleet and be a Marine in 2 episodes because time means nothing in the TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've kind of I didn't even say anything about that in my review because I've just given up on it. I just have accepted it that everybody has transporters and everybody's traveling ridiculous distances. John and Sansa and them will just barrel through the entire North in an episode.
Yeah, they'll probably
go through all the houses in one episode.
They'll probably be in White Harbor in one scene, and the very next scene they'll be in Bear Island, even though that's like a gigantic distance.
Yeah.
Okay, so but I was wondering why they didn't mention trying to get the Manderleys. Like John was like, "Oh, let's get all these minor houses." I'm like, "Wait a second, Davos just said that the Manderleys is the one major house that's not declared. Do you think that would be a priority?"
Because they have to have the Manderleys joined last and have Wyman Manderley make his dramatic speech, and that has to be like the last thing that they do first for the dramatic purposes. I mean, there isn't really any logical. It's for the show. There isn't really any logical reason. You're right. I mean, if he's being smart, you go for the biggest house first.
Exactly. I mean,
declared to the Boltons yet before they declare for the Boltons.
Exactly. Before they declared it, you want to grab them first before they declare to the Boltons. Exactly. Now, someone in my comments section mentioned, he wanted to have the minor houses first so he could have a little system before he went to Manderleys, but it seems it would make more sense to have the Manderleys on their side first before going to the minor houses, and he'd be able to win the minor houses over hey, we got the Manderleys on our side. But yeah, you're right. It's plot convenience. Dramatic effect.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about with Castle Black is Sansa sending Brienne off to River Run. So we've been speculating why, what would happen. Why would Sansa send Brienne off to River Run? And it seems like it's just plain and simple. She wants to bring the Tullys to the north. Now, I realize that the siege, we have more knowledge than the characters do because we know there's going to be a big siege of River Run, and that hasn't happened in the show yet. So we have more knowledge than they do. But even forgetting that entirely, it seems like Sansa should know that they have their own shit to deal with in the Riverlands, and that they wouldn't. It seems like a dumb idea. And even Davos is like, "Oh yeah, the Tullys, awesome. We're gonna roll." I'm like, wait a second, guys. Don't you realize?
Sansa can forget more than Davos. Davos should have a little more knowledge than that. But Sansa, I mean, what does she know? I mean, I could see her making that mistake, but yeah, Davos should know better. So should Jon Snow, really.
So do you think it's going to be pretty, Brienne's going to show up there and they're just going to be like, we got too much shit going down here. We can't send troops to the north.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll try to enlist Brienne's help. We'll help us here, and then we'll happily go to the north, but we first got to get rid of these Lannisters. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that might be what puts Brienne in the pickle, because I, of course, predicted that, Sansa would send her to kill Jaime, but as you rightfully pointed out, the timeline didn't match up. But since Jaime's going to be the head of opposition and she's going to be loyal bound to help the Tullys defeat Jaime, that's going to put her in the sort of predicament.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so any other thoughts on whatchamacallit, the North. Oh, guys, if you want to ask any questions, because we're going to end this thing soon, but if you want to ask any questions before we go, just do it real quick. But yeah, any other thoughts, Akton?
Yeah, I think we both had similar thoughts on the Dallas Ed becoming Lord Commander. I thought it was kind of funny. He was just kind of looking around, like, oh, fuck it, I guess I am the Lord Commander. There isn't anybody else left. But and that's kind of what I expected. I didn't expect any big election. I just thought, I don't think the Night's Watch is going to play a big part for a while. The next time that they'll play a big part is when either Bran or the White Walkers get to the Wall, which could happen this season. But I don't think we'll see them at all until that happens. So I think like having a big election and whatever, doesn't matter. Jon Snow was what the Wall was all about. Now that he's separating from that storyline, they don't need a big election. They can just say, oh, Dallas Ed just looks around and goes, oh, okay, I'm the Lord Commander now. And that's all they need to do. That's all they need.
Yeah, it doesn't really match up, because then you have, what about Sir Mallister or whatever from the Shadow Tower, and you have 3 other towers. Maybe there's people more senior in those castles that could take over the whole Night's Watch rather than just Ed. But that's not going to bother with that, because Ed is like exactly what you said in your video, is that Ed's the only main character left. So obviously they're just going to give it to him. And some people are complaining, oh, they should have a vote. And I was like, the show's not going to, that would be such a waste of time. The show is not going to bother with that.
Well, like I said, I don't think now that Jon Snow is leaving, the Night's Watch is not important to the story until the White Walkers or Bran gets to the Wall, whichever comes first. Then they're going to be back in the story again. But Dallas Ed does not stand on his own, and certainly none of the other characters, we don't even know their names anymore for most of them. None of them stand on their own. They need other main characters in the plot. So we're not going to see Dallas Ed until Bran or White Walkers get to the Wall.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Okay, so let's move on to questions from the chat. We have a really good one from Jean-Philippe Poirier, who asks, where do you think Daenerys will go when she gets to Westeros first? Like, what part of Westeros? And hold on, will this happen this season? Well, you tackle that first, Akton.
Yeah, as far as will it happen this season, no. Your original prediction, Mark, was that it would, but you retracted that because we're not on the pace.
Yeah,
we're not on the pace for that to happen, and I never thought we would be. They're moving fast, but they're not moving that fast. So, it won't be this season for sure. I still think she'll leave for Westeros at the end of the season, perhaps with Yara and Theon, but who knows? She'll leave, and as far as what part of Westeros she'll go to first, well, my original prediction was Dorne, back when I thought Dorne was going to be a halfway decent storyline. I'm wondering, if she does form an alliance with Euron, which I could see her form an alliance with Euron, because she would be smarter than Sansa. She would use Euron, I think, the way that Sansa didn't do with Littlefinger. So that's a possibility. So maybe the Iron Islands, I don't know. Maybe they'll go back to Dragonstone. Who's a Dragonstone anymore? Stannis is...
Nobody knows in the show. The show just didn't address that.
Yeah, they didn't address it at all. So maybe they'll go back to Dragonstone and start there.
And the show also didn't address who's in the Stormlands, so that maybe they'll go there.
Well, Dragonstone was her home. That's where she was when she was a baby. That's like formerly the Targaryens.
Yeah, that would be the logical place, although it is right next to King's Landing, so that puts that creates the really high tension.
Yeah. Is it really right next to King's Landing, though? It's not right next to it.
You look at the map; it's close geography terms. Yeah. You don't. Let me put it this way: you don't need to borrow Littlefinger's transporter to get there in the next episode. I think that's because I agree with you that they probably won't be going to Dorne anymore now that they completely fucked up that storyline. Yeah. Okay. Was there a question you saw that you wanted to ask?
Yeah, there's another question from our old friend Sia Latte. I gotta scroll up to find it. There it is. It's actually directed to you specifically, so I guess I'm not allowed to answer this. The Shaman of Eternity. Question: if dragon glass is fire-infused rock, or the mysterious block stones ice-infused rock? Origin of the White Walkers and the mysterious black stones all over the world.
Yeah, I don't know. The reason why I didn't really pick that question out is because I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that question, to be honest. I'm still like, it looks like that dragon glass is like was created and used in creating the White Walkers, which is why it kills them. So, and as far as the I don't know. I just don't know.
Well, I don't know if the ice infused rock, because they were there before there was ice and snow there. Like, it was like perfectly summery out when we saw the Children of the Forest, and those rocks were there. So I don't know if it's necessarily ice infused.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay, yeah, I'll probably agree with that. Okay, so Pooh Bear with me asks, do you think Bran's brand from the Night's King will help enable the White Walkers to go past the wall? Well, we talked about that earlier. You might have missed that.
Yeah.
Where I think it's a possibility. Like, I would hate it story-wise, but I think it's very possible they could do that. But that would make Bran the biggest idiot in the world for allowing the White Walkers to pass the wall. But I don't know.
Yeah. Angel's question is, what was the thing the children placed in the first White Walker? That was dragon glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is ironic because now dragon glass is what shatters the White Walkers, but that's what's created them.
Oh, yeah, and Sir Wendell Wallace asks, is where the first White Walker was made the same place where Bran and BR? Who's BR?
Blood Raven.
Blood Raven. Oh, no, I think it's where Bran warred to, where he found the Night's King, where the Night's King grabbed him. I think he warred back to the same place, but in present times. And I think Dan and Dave confirmed that. Yeah, and inside the episode.
Yeah, and it definitely is. And somebody also pointed out, even before the episode aired, just from looking at the trailer or the photos, I think the photos that were released more specifically, that it looked like the same place that we first saw the Night's King in season 4 when he turned Craster's baby into a White Walker. And that I can't confirm or deny because I'd have to go back and watch that. But I think that that's entirely possible too, because the Night's King was at that location when Bran saw him. So it could be the lands of Always Winter.
Yeah,
which wasn't so wintry back in when the Children of the Forest were there.
Yeah, I think that's what we're meant to believe. So another question from Janelle Warden. If you're taking questions, do you think the show will actually go the Dany is cray-cray like her dad route? And my answer is no. I've been or the books as well. I'm very against this theory. I think that people just like to compare them because of their father, but I think Dany is not going to go mad. I don't think she's going mad. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, there was that line in the books about the flip of the coin, how Targaryens are either crazy or they're really noble. Rhaegar was on the noble side. His dad was on the crazy side. And I think it's very clear that the Viserys was on the crazy side of the coin. And Daenerys, in very stark contrast, is on the noble side of the coin. She's on the same side with Rhaegar. So I think it's very clear. There's no question. She's not meant to ever go crazy in the books or the show.
So there's some questions in the chat generally. A couple of them about Bran. Is he trapped in his warging? Is he gonna out of his body? And I don't think that's true. I think the next time we see him, he'll be normal. I think he was just, for that whole event, he was sort of freaking out.
Yeah, I think so too. And we should be wrapping this up because people would ask questions all night. I don't actually
I was just about to say we got to wrap up. We've been going for a long time. Yeah, so we need to wrap this up now. So sorry we can't get to any more questions, but thank you all. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for subscribing to our channels. If you haven't, please do that. Enchantment of Eternity, Akton, Tamko, and check us out for next week, where Don Willie will be our special guest, joining us to talk about episode 6, which we haven't confirmed the exact time, but it might be slightly earlier than what we normally do since it's Memorial Day in the States.
Yeah, we'll let you know on that. It may be a few hours earlier, so maybe some more East Coast people can watch it without having to stay up late. Or it could be the next day. We don't know yet. We'll let you know when we have a time nailed down, but it's probably not going to be the same time that we normally do. So, but we'll let you know when it will be for sure next week.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.